This is every October, we do this thing called, the monthly theme is called Abundance by Design. And it is the month that we set aside for two reasons. In the life of the community, it's Pledge Month. In the life of each of us, it's the opportunity to revisit what our abundance factor is. How comfortable are we? How congruent are we with our good? Specifically, money. I have one of the teachers that influenced me the most in this teaching said she always loved this month because you can be all airy-fairy about your good and prosperity principles and living in all the flow of spirit. And this is a month focusing on money, looking at our prosperity, our good, gives us an opportunity to see it in black and white. Where are we with this? Now, she said that. I don't say that. But I think it's all right. I think it's all right that we do this once a year. Most of you all know I was raised Catholic, and there are things that you say every week in a Catholic Mass. You know, they're kind of rote things. They're rote prayers. They're rote I think it's the Nicene Creed. And when I grew up and moved away from home, I quit going to church because it wasn't required anymore. And I went back a couple of years later and I went to Mass with my mom. And I started listening to the things I had been saying my whole life. And I was appalled. I quit saying them. And I got kind of mad about it. And I say that to illustrate that sometimes we say things, the risk of doing something on a regular basis is that we go to sleep around it. Right? Oh, this is just what we do. And whether the message is a good one or a not so good one, we still do it. And so every week here at HeartSpace, before we do the offering, we do the abundance affirmation. And it goes like this. I am in the flow of divine good. All that I am and all that I give circulates and returns to me, heaped up, pressed down, and running over. Say it every week. It's a good thing to say every week. But what I'm hoping to do today is to give, actually all month, is to give that abundance affirmation some oomph by taking it apart and helping all of us to remember or understand exactly what it is that we're saying. And so this week we're going to start with the first line, which is, I am in the flow of divine good. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, what is this thing called divine good? And to understand or illuminate what that means, the divine good or good, we're going to look at the writings of Emma Curtis Hopkins. Now, there's some people snickering in the room, and the reason that they're snickering is because they're in the Roots class right now, and they heard me say that I can't stand this woman's writings. I want to tell you one day in advance of class that I've somewhat changed my mind. So I am in the flow of divine good. This is let me tell you who Emma Curtis Hopkins was. For those of you who are new or not familiar with the history of New Thought, Emma Curtis Hopkins is considered the teacher of teachers. She was a mystic. She taught the founders of Unity, Myrtle, and Charles Fillmore. She had Ernest Holmes, our founder, as a student. And she also taught a couple of the women affiliated with the Divine Science movement. One of the more interesting things about Emma Curtis Hopkins, and this is sort of off topic, but as a woman who's a minister, this is important to me. The entire movement for women in ministry was paved by Emma Curtis Hopkins. She is the one that said, come on to the school, I'll teach you. And that movement, which of course started in New Thought and started in these alternative teachings, actually then spread to Christianity. And even women Christian ministers owe their, she was a way shower even to them. All right. So this quote comes from a book called Class Lessons. In the beginning, God created. They, and she's talking about all the wisdom traditions, they all say this. Was the writer speaking of the time of an actual beginning? No. In principle, creative dues has no reference to time. To one who searches in most meaning, these words tell that in the great forever, without beginning of years or end of days, God is creating or creates. Okay, so let me unpack that just a little bit. So what she's saying is in the great forever, without beginning of years or end of days. So she's not in the beginning a long time ago, but in the beginning all the time. A creator, not the great absentee of the universe, who, having set the mysterious mechanism into action, left it to spin its desolate way unheeded, but the perpetual causation of all things. So it's not that a long time ago, in the beginning, God somewhere else created heaven and earth and said, here it is, deal with it. No. All the time, it's creating. The perpetual causation of all things, the responsible center of all life. God's name is the good. In other words, good is perpetual causation. It doesn't ring quite as sweetly to say, I am in the flow of perpetual causation. Does it? It's just not as fun. But that's essentially what we're saying, and we can call it law, we can call it the creative process, the creative principle, whatever it is. We are in it. It is in us, and it's happening in the beginning, moment by moment by moment. And we are in it. We are in the flow of divine good. Emma Curtis Hopkins goes on to say this, and I'm kind of squooshing some things together because she says it repeatedly. Did I say she said it repeatedly? Like 4 pages of repeatedly. But let me just give you the gist of it. Okay. What and where is the good? Life is good. There's no point of space or place where life as life is not good. If one says life is not good, he doesn't mean that life as life is not good, but only that his experience with conditions is unendurable. Truth is good. There is no point of space or place where truth is not good. She's going to go on and say the same thing. Love is good. There's no point of space or place where love is not good. If one says that love is not good, he doesn't mean that love is love, but only that his desires toward a certain object are unbearable. Okay, so what is she saying here? That this essence of life, which is the good, which she goes on to say is life, truth, love, substance, intelligence, mind, all good. But it doesn't mean that our experience of it is good. Does that make sense? Right? And then the point she goes on to make is we have been working at the problem of life with two opposing creators, proposing the mind of man and the mind that is God or good different. How could we think so as to get in harmony with the good? Is there a way to live the good life thinking that the mind of man and the mind of God are different or opposed? So I want to use a very simple illustration of this. Jereva? All right. When I think of being in the flow of good, this is the image that comes to me. Actually, it's me in an inner tube, actually in the water, moving down the river. That's what I get, the flow of good. I use this because I personally love water. Okay, this is cool. This person is in the flow of good. They are in the flow of causation. Looks like it's going pretty well. Next slide. This person also in the flow. Next slide. To be determined. What's the point here? The point is that it is our relationship or our unity with the thought of good, with the thought of God, with the mind of God, that determines whether or not we experience what already is as good. In other words, the is isn't changing. Do you see? The eternal now that is recreating itself is always doing that. And it's always doing that in the direction of truth and love and, what else she say? Intelligence and substance. But our experience of it in a way that is pleasing or pleasurable to us depends on whether we are of two minds. In other words, seeing with the eyes of a human, just an animal human, or if we are seeing with the eyes that know we are divine incarnations. You know, as far as I can figure out, this is the only journey there is in New Thought. Seeing with the eyes of our divinity, living from the place of our divinity, knowing, grasping, embodying a way of living where we know that we and spirit are not two, but one. One mind, one heart, one truth, one intelligence. If we got that, if we really, really got that, that's all we would need to know. The thing is that, it's easy to go to sleep, isn't it? It's easy to be deceived by appearances. Whether the appearances are the end of a relationship, the very, very visible, persistent racism in our country, negative balances in our checkbooks, ideas that we don't have enough time or resources, any of those. But when we live in the flow of good, we know that it's actually impossible, if good is God, and there's only one, and it's inseparable, then there cannot be a lack. It's just, this is just flat out logic. Can there be a lack in God? I mean, no. The answer is no. But if we are of two minds, then we may be seeing and experiencing lack. And so what we're going to spend our time doing this month is understanding all the ways that that come out of this very, this abundance affirmation that we say on Sundays. I didn't just sit down and write it in 30 seconds. It actually had some thought. There's some intention behind it. There's some consciousness behind it. And so we're going to unpack it this month in such a way that I hope that each of us gets at least one aha that we can grasp and put in our pockets so that we really understand what it's like to live an abundant life, a good life. So I want y'all to say this with me. This comes from Emma Curtis Hopkins as well. There's good in the universe, and I ought to have it. Close your eyes. Say it again. There's good in the universe, and I ought to have it. Okay. Turn to the person closest to you, or get close to a person you can turn to. And I want you to each of you spend 1 minute telling that person where you believe that in life and where you don't. There's good in my life and I ought to have it. There's good in the universe and I ought to have it. Where do you believe it? Where do you not? If you guys haven't switched already, it's time to switch. Yeah, you can. I'll move this. Okay, I have about 30 more seconds, ladies and gents. All right, thank your partner. Herding cats. Thank your partner. You can thank them by hugging them. It's good. I'm sorry it's cold, Alexis. We opened all the doors. Okay, so I'd like everybody to close your eyes. And I want you to join me in setting an intention for this month about your good. Perhaps you're already using an intention about your good somewhere else in your life, and you don't have to have a new one. Perhaps your good is assured in every area of your life, and you'd like to join me in setting an intention for the good of HeartSpace. So take a few seconds to answer for yourself. What good do I want to flow? Where do I want to set a new cause in motion? The sum of our lives is in our intentions. Those beliefs, those places of possibility, and the intentions that come from them flow into form from the unmanifest to the manifest, from the world of ideas to the world of form. That's the good that we live within. The idea that we are actually not a victim of our circumstances, not a sole product of our upbringing or our training. But that we live freely and openly and at choice. I am in the flow of perpetual choice about my life. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is good. It is the good. There is no life that we see or touch or hear or smell that is outside of this one life. There is nothing outside the good. What I affirm and declare and know for everyone in this room today, including myself, is that because we know this truth, because we know that we are creating our own lives, our own good, our own abundance, or rather co-creating it, that we are free each and every day to recreate it, to call in and call forth the experience we are choosing to have of our good. Be it love or intelligence or peace or harmony, light, purpose, one life, the life of the good. My life today and every day, my choice this and every moment. My mind united with the mind of spirit, the only mind that there is. Remembering who I am, who each of us is. That perfectly individualized incarnation of the one power, one presence, the incarnation of good. And it is enough, and more than enough. And so I call it what it is. It is good and very good. And so it is.